Hi everyone. I am coming to you from Sedona, Arizona. I know that the light behind me is blocking out the view, but I'm going to tilt this just away from me for a few minutes. Well, seconds, I should say. Maybe we'll see where I'm guided. What I'm guided to do here. You might want to look at this energy more than my face at the video, but it'll come into focus. That is, if you can see, that's the red rocks behind me. The view, the trees are blocking quite a bit of it, but you still get the general idea of what is going on back there. The energies here is just phenomenal. If you ever get the chance to come out west, it's a very easy, and 2 hour drive. It seems about like an hour, um, straight up 17 from Phoenix. Just a really easy trip to make. And I'm staying at Sky Ranch Lodge, and it's incredibly nice and close to everything, and it's just a wonderful value for what you get. But today I'm not going to do a reading. I'm not going to pull cards. I am just going to talk to you guys about the importance. I've got this weird, like, or I don't know if you guys can see on my face. It's funny, like I said, the energy is like this blue glow, and I think it's just, maybe it's my aura coming out. It tends to do that here, and I'm honestly feel like I'm floating. I just had, let's see what time it is here. It is 4:30 here on Friday, and I started at 10 a.m. this morning, and I just got back a little bit ago. But my session, I think, lasted about 4 hours, and then the woman and I, we went to lunch afterwards, and she introduced me to the most amazing place that had. I'm not vegan, but a lot of the stuff that I can eat, that I know it's safe if it's vegan, and everything was gluten free. I had a sandwich, and I had coconut cream pie, which I haven't had in years. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And not to digress, but you just, when you meet people that your path you're supposed to cross, with them, you just instantly click. And so she invited me out to a wine bar up the road tonight, so I'm going to meet some of her friends, and there's a band, and so it's just going to be. But I wanted to come in between and record this while stuff is still fresh in my mind. But she did record the session. Um, as you guys know, I've profess all the time, talk about it, that I was catapulted onto this path as a twin flame. And labels, you can call it whatever you want. There are, I believe, twin flames are a subset of sacred partner soul connections, and I don't believe that any one is better than the other. So if you resonate with this, if you're going through ascension, you're working on yourself, and you're growing, and you're looking to, you're here for a reason to do something in this life, and you want to take the next big step, I think it's absolutely critical that you not only deal with your childhood issues. I mean, that's the start, right? You've got to start somewhere. Childhood is also past trauma. But you've got to deal with the childhood issues, the core wounds. And once you start really digging deep and digging through those things and getting through them, you have to start dealing with the past life stuff, whether you want to or not. I will talk about my experience. I'm trying to, this blue, it just does not want to go away, does it, guys? And here, I'll just show you another view of the back, just so you guys can see. Oh, okay, see the energy. So, and I'm right by the airport, so if it gets loud, just, I apologize. I did turn my AC off just to minimize the background noise, but I'm going to talk about the experiences I've had, but I've got some notes here as well. I didn't want to miss anything, so I apologize if I'm rambling, but you guys know that's kind of what I tend to do. So when I talk about past life, there's a lot of different views on what that is, and everybody has their own viewpoints. And I think it could be actually be, there could be a mix of things as well. Past life, and many people in the sense think if you literally lived that life, you were incarnated in different times, you as your soul. There are some groups, subset people that think um, that reincarnation isn't real, but that you may believe that you have spirit guides and ancestral karma. I think that definitely is a reality. Some of these things you maybe didn't actually live as your soul, but your spirit line ancestral karma is imprinted upon your DNA, and they're imprinting it on you because they're guiding you to not make the same mistakes in this life. And if you learn the lessons they didn't, if you're faced with these same tests, you learn the lessons they didn't, you both get to ascend into the next level, the next dimension, if that's heaven, whatever that is, whatever your beliefs are. So I definitely identify with that quite a bit. Um, some of it, that came through for me, it was just as if, this is very strong. Like I did live that life. Um, and it was the more ancient stuff that really came through strongly. The other stuff wasn't as strong. It was more spirit line, but it was explaining to me why some of these things, I was experiencing were coming through. So just for clarification purposes, when I say I was doing this, I was doing that, it doesn't necessarily mean I was. It means whatever was coming through to me. It was like, it could have been the spirit guide. It could have been whatever. So just take that with a grain of salt. But the important thing to know too is that if you have chronic illness, chronic pain, it is most likely trauma from this life or other lives that you have not healed. And it's manifesting because, again, it imprints in your DNA, imprints in your cells. And until you face it, clear it, deal with it, you are going to suffer in this life. And it's not just emotionally, it literally can be physical pain. I will get to that here in a minute. But some of the themes, there's all different kinds of things that come through when you do these regressions, but some of the big ones that tend to be common just because of the eras that obviously were in the past, being in battle or at war, and famine, disease, being poor, dying in childbirth, unrequited love, and forbidden love. Those last three were really the big ones for me, which I was not surprised because I'd already was picking up on a lot of stuff anyway, but I got confirmation today majorly, and it tied everything together that's happened to me these last 6 months or so. So again, I'm going through this chronic pain. Much of this pain can be cleared energetically, and when you do that, you really do feel it really can be cured. With a pill, can't cure these things. If they're ancestral and they're buried in your DNA, taking a pill, even going to a psychiatrist, dealing with the emotional part of it, that can help, but you really need energetic healing to do this. So again, like I said, it's like tying pieces of the puzzle together. And, if there's something that keeps happening in your life, these reoccurring patterns, or a toxic situation that you can't seem to let this person go, and you don't know why, because you feel such a deep, strong bond with them and something that you've never felt before. That's a whole nother story if that person is your divine soul counterpart, your twin flame, whatever you want to call it, and you're on parallels, and you're being guided, and you believe that you're on this path with them. I'm talking about a karmic situation where this person, they don't make you better. Okay. They don't, remember what I had said before about, if you watch the earth science video about the devil in disguise, how you'll know, are they draining your energy or are they uplifting you? Or even if they trigger you, is it making you grow? Is it making you learn and ascend and better yourself? If somebody is toxic, they're going to trigger you, and they're going to deplete you and drain your soul dry and drain your energy, drain you financially. There's a big difference. Okay. And at some point you'll know. It took me a while in this life. It took me 35 years to be like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that in this life anymore. And then the past life ones started coming out of the woodwork. So, I've said this in one of my other posts, notice the patterns, because life is a spiral, and it's just going to keep, if you don't quite get the lesson the first time, you're going to it's going to keep presenting itself to you in different ways. And then you get to this point in it where you're going to be like, oh, this is familiar. There's some parallels here with this. So back to that in a minute. But, today I had told my tailbone was screaming, and many of you, I think I've talked about it. 3 years ago, right around this time, I was going through my second divorce. That was what I called my dark night of the soul, basically hitting rock bottom to start my awakening. And I didn't know at the time, but I knew before today that, me falling and breaking my tailbone during this time was very symbolic. That's the root chakra. That's your foundation. That's your strength, your stability, feeling like you have it all together, right? And my entire life was falling apart as far as what I thought my life was going to be, my stability, just my whole foundation was just shattered. So it's just odd because when I started my business, my tailbone, it kind of just stopped hurting, and I thought it was cured. I thought, well, it's been a couple years, it should be done by now. But it's really been coming back the last few weeks, and I was like, what the heck is this? And I was getting, a lot of pain like back here, right? And I knew it was my heart chakra. I knew it was. And I was kind of blaming my twin. I was kind of blaming him for maybe his heart opening or something, but what I should have realized is you're mirroring each other, right? So there's something within me that is a block as well. And it's just on and off. I feel like I pulled a muscle and it hurts, and then it kind of just goes away. And I'm like, that's weird. So she had me on my stomach, face down, obviously, and she knew the tailbone was the issue. So she put her hand like right down there, and I could just feel her vibrating, and I had the kind of like the Kundalini energy, like my entire back was shaking. It was literally like an orgasm. My whole back was like this. And then I started feeling my heart palpitations, and I was like, I'm feeling this in my heart. And she's like, yes, sweetie, like it's something, and I knew like before she even said it, I knew what it was. It was tied to my divorce, that feeling of being shattered literally at the core, that the life that you thought you were going to have, and here you are staring down. At the time I was staring down 37 years old, going through a second divorce, wanting children, feeling like my entire life was just obliterated. Like I don't even know where to start. I'm decimated. That pain that I thought I'd gotten past it, I mean, my heart, I just started feeling it, and it all came out, and I was sobbing and crying and shaking, and like it came out. And I was able to sit at lunch and sit in the same chair I'd been sitting in with her for the morning, and I was uncomfortable. And I still feel it a little bit, but the point is, I feel like I'm floating. I feel lighter. She got that out of me. So that was before we even started the past life stuff. But again, that's an example of how and to like the curvature in my back, like it was just weighed down, and like she was able to pinpoint a lot of the stuff going on my left side, which is the past. I guess I had one leg that was shorter than the other, and then they were even. Um, there's just, if you're in chronic pain, you need to do energy clearing. And it could be stuff you thought you dealt with, traumas, it's imprinted in your cells. So some deeper work is required than just maybe going to therapy, facing it, journaling. There's energetic work is definitely necessary. So, okay. So going back to my story, you guys know, if you've watched the Soul Connections videos, I've talked quite a bit. I'm pretty open about what happened last spring. When out of the blue, I met a guy and looked in his eyes, and I was absolutely floored. I had never seen anything like that before. It was ancient, it was primal, and it was indescribable. Our souls knew each other somehow. And the guy was 21, and it looked older, and but our bond was instant. And my best friend witnessed this. We were like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm like, it was just crazy. And it was so strong. And I was so in a place on my twin flame journey that I was so frustrated at being rejected, and with things not progressing, that I was just like, screw this. Like, that guy's not even my twin, because this guy kind of looks like me, and I'm going to pursue this. And it literally was this whirlwind. You guys, I think probably if you watched my videos back then, I talked about, it was in April by the time this kind of started progressing, and he and I had been talking, where we would finish each other's sentences. The age difference didn't matter. The connection we had was just absolutely undeniable. And he was talking about, and just to backtrack, he lives in a different state, but at the time he was here working, and the place he was working closed temporarily. So he flew home for 10 days and was going to come back after that. Well, what ended up happening, as you guys famously know, he got arrested St. Patrick's Day for disorderly conduct. And but he had talked about coming back here. He's like, I would only come back, to Ohio for you now, but I don't have anywhere to live. Like, and I'm like, you're going to live with me. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Like, who would do this? Like, what person in their right mind would do this? It's because we had that past life together. It was so strong. And I knew there were so many red flags, but I was just like, oh my God. And so guess who bailed him out of jail? Or, I didn't bail him out of jail, but I paid his court fine so he wouldn't go to jail. And he didn't ask, I offered. I'm like, oh my God. And so this was when I was going to Nashville, which, pay attention, Nashville's significant. Um, and I was going to fly him to Nashville. And I was like, let's try this out in Nashville. And you come back to Ohio with me, and we'll get you a job, and this is great, we're gonna give it a try. And I mean, thank God he ended up chickening out and not doing it, because that's just insane. I mean, it's just who would do this, right? But it just, at the time, it was just like, oh my God. And I didn't understand. I struggled I just really struggled. And I still thought after that, like, that maybe there was a chance with this guy. Like, why? I mean, this guy had, I mean, and he's a beautiful soul, but he had so many issues, was so young, and he had not, like, and he was working on himself, and he was awakened. He was awakened. I mean, he's like, I see 333 all the time to you. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, I knew you knew what twin flames are, because I know I'm, this, and it was just crazy. Right. So of course I get sucked into that. I struggled to let this person go, knowing all these things, that it wasn't right in this life, but I couldn't understand and I sent him more money, and knowing I would never get it back. I mean, I sent him money, and then he would ghost me. And, finally I unfriended him. Then I had to block him because he came back, and, it was just, I struggled, and I don't know why you're a smart, successful woman. You're a strong woman. Why are you so drawn to this person, and why are you struggling to let them go? And I even, when I was in Myrtle Beach, that's where ended up, like, that's one of the reasons I unfriended him. I didn't want him to know I was there. And I ended up about 10 minutes from where I wasn't planning on it, but the friend I met down there, she took me to North Myrtle Beach, and I was about 10 minutes from where he works. And she's like, do you want to go? And I was like, even though things had, I was in a separation again this time around, I was like, no, I'm closing this out. There's no reason to see him. We're not doing anything in this life. So, fast forward to this week, and you guys know I posted the other night. I am at the Dallas airport, minding my own business. I have a 2-hour layover, and so I go to the wine bar that's literally right by my gate. I mean, how lucky am I for that, right? And I'm working, and there's tables all over. I mean, it's kind of a small place, but this guy walks in, and I could tell he was wanted to work too, because he had his laptop and stuff. And I could tell he wanted an outlet. So he was going to sit at the table by me, but I was had my computer. That table was really small, and I wanted a lot of space because the tables, anyway. So I was like, oh, if you want to sit here, I was like, I can move my cord if it's in your way. But I said, oh, we can actually share, because as long as this isn't bothering you. And he was like, oh, are you alone? And I was like, yeah. And he was just extremely handsome. And when he looked at me, the only other time I've seen that type of feeling, that was when I looked in the young guy from the spring. And I was like, oh my God, not another one, not another one. I was like, holy crap. So I'm working, I'm trying to mind my own business. And he kept trying to talk to me, because I knew we both felt it, instantly. I mean, as with this other younger guy, the younger guy was the one that acknowledged it first. He's like, I looked in your eyes, and I felt something I've never ever felt before with anybody. And I knew he was telling the truth. And this same guy said it this week. And I I knew exactly what it was. It was past life. So the irony here, right, is the whole situation with the young guy centered around Nashville. This new guy was flying to Nashville. Of all the places he could be going, right, for a conference, he's going to Nashville. And there's a big difference here, though. This time around, right, you've got a 21-year-old bartender with addiction issues and anger issues, lots of other issues, who obviously doesn't have a lot to offer beyond his soul, which I was willing to accept. Here you have a guy who's 43, 44 years old, just sold his Silicon Valley startup business, who travels across the country as keynote speaker on things. He was a former all kinds of positions with AT&T, and he's on the Forbes Technology Council. And he's wanting my number, and I'm against my better judgment. I'm like, I shouldn't do this. I know what this is, but I did it. And of course, he follows through. He texts me. He's like, I've never felt anything like this before. Our meeting wasn't random. Have you ever seen Serendipity? Her name was Sarah. Like, we just had an instant connection. And I'm like, I know. And we, for a brief moment, talked about him flying to Phoenix, because I'm going to be going back to Phoenix next week. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, and then I was kind of like, no, this is not. I knew what it was instantly, right? I just noticed that I told my friends, I was like, I should have even given this guy my number. This is the same situation for March. It's another test. It's the exact same. I mean, you've got Nashville, and then it's just it's going to be a lot, but here's a guy who's older, more established. The universe is like, oh, you thought this other guy was a test. We're going to show you a test. And this guy is putting effort in, right? Versus the younger guy was like kind of flaky, and I felt like using me for money, and not really putting any effort into developing something with me. This guy's like wanting to text me, wanting to know how my day is, wanting to video chat, wanting to make plans to see me, and taking time to get to know me. And it's, when I said Phoenix is just, this is just too rushed. It's too soon. He's like, I'll come to Ohio to visit you. And I was just noticing the parallels right here. I was the one in the spring pushing along. Let's, I'm going to fly you to Nashville, and I want to, get to know you, and I want to try with you. And here's this guy. It's like the roles were flipped, and this guy is a much better catch, right? And he's the one pursuing me. But I was just like, no, this is not my destiny. I don't understand what this connection is, other than I know it's past life karma. I've got to clear. There's something big happening, and it's the funny thing that's happening right before I'm coming to get this session done here. I mean, it's not random. So he was right. Our meeting was not random. Another thing too, like I just felt drained. It was constant. I was like, look, like I came here to clear my head. I'm on my trip by myself. Like I cut my workout. I know I have this routine. Like when I come to flying to Phoenix, I wake up early the next morning because of the time difference. And I do the elliptical for 30 minutes. I do these certain things. And like, I cut my workout in half to accommodate video chatting with him. And it was just like, no, like I want to do my own thing. And it just felt very stifling and draining. And by the time I drove to Sedona, I was so drained because like I hadn't responded to his text, and he's like, did you make it? And it's just like, I just was so drained. Like I was in bed at 7:30 when I got here. So that was another thing that I knew. I'm like, I can't do this. So instead of like what I would have done, in the past, if I'm in a relationship that's sucking me dry, I would have just been like, well, I'm going to give it. I'm like, I said, you know what? I said, I came here to focus on myself. And I did end up telling him too. I told him when we video chat, I was like, I said, I'm on a specific path to, I was not looking to date anybody. I haven't been looking to date anybody. There's someone that I care very deeply about that I've been on and off with. And I don't know that this is overwhelming. I don't know that I'm ready for this. So I did let him know that. But by the time like the day went on, I'm like, no, this is never going to happen. So I just knew. So I told him, I was like, I'm really sorry, but, I've enjoyed meeting you, and I just, it's not in the stars. Then he said, he was very interesting. I said, you have to follow what's in your heart. And there we go. So here I am coming to the session today, and I'm like, what the heck, right? And I don't know what I was expecting. I knew I was going to get some answers, but I didn't realize like how everything was this is why it's so important if you have people like this or situations in your life. The first thing that I did, I should have never let it even go. I should have never even given my contact information, right? I mean, but the point is, like, I just knew immediately this is the same thing representing itself. And even dabbling in it, I'm just like, this isn't even, it's not my sacred partner. And if it's not my sacred partner, I'd rather be alone. So there's no point in continuing this, right? So, but I knew like this was significant. So today in the regression, first I was I remember going to, and she recorded it, but I remember it's so vivid in my mind right now. I was in Atlantis, and it was funny how I couldn't really pinpoint whether I was male or female. And she said, well, they were more androgynous back then. And then she was talking about it was like a balancing, because that's one of the things I'm working on is balancing my energy. Um, but I was a healer in Atlantis. So, and then like the strongest one came through next. No, was it next? It doesn't really matter. But then I did get taken. I got taken to one that I have knew had happened before, about being a peasant and having long blonde hair and being in love with a king or a prince, and it was forbidden love, basically. And then the roles were reversed, and this is where it gets really interesting. So I was walking alone, um, in an empty, cold. It was like a dark. It wasn't a tomb. Maybe it was a tomb, but there was no one else around. It was definitely Egypt. And I just remember feeling very lonely, powerful, but lonely. And then it came to light, I was a king. So I was masculine. Shocking for those of you who know me that I was masculine. Makat was the name I got. Mikhat. Um, but I was lonely because I was a very compassionate king, and I was expected to be more dominating and cruel. And so I was struggling with that power issue as far as wanting to change kind of how the things were going. And one of the things that I didn't like, that I really couldn't do anything about because of the time that it was, thousands of years ago, was that I was to wed, um, someone else who also was a royalty. I mean, obviously a woman, but I didn't love her. I loved the peasant. I don't know if they were called peasants in ancient Egypt, but um, the arranged marriage with the wealthy counterpart was the soul. It was the guy that I met this week. And the one who that I really loved was the one who was not, quote, good enough for me. And her name was, it was like a weird name. I don't know if it's an Egyptian name, but it was like Jessawa, which was a J. And it came to light that she drowned herself in a river because we couldn't be together. And so, for those of you who know the story with this younger guy, I mean, it makes complete sense now why I felt so compelled in this life to help him. I was like, there's no choice. I'm giving him money. I'm offering to give him money. I had this residual guilt from what happened with our souls or our ancestors, whatever it was, all that time ago in ancient Egypt. When I loved him, we couldn't be together because of societal differences, which look at the differences we had now, right? Here I am, a lawyer. I'm probably old enough to be his mother. I think I'm like 17 years older than him. He doesn't have anything to offer other than his soul. So we couldn't be together. Obviously, I mean, we couldn't be together in this life, but he was self-destructing, and he self-destructed in that past life in ancient Egypt, which is why I felt it makes sense why it was much easier this time too, not only for me learning the lesson, realizing it, and being further along in my journey than I was in the spring, and being more confident in the way things are going, but the love that I felt for the one that I couldn't be with, no wonder I struggled to let him go and to close that door in this life, because I felt like I owed him something because of what happened before. So I'm on fire right now, you guys. But it was much easier for me, and it makes sense. Like this other guy who comes in and has all these credentials and has a shit together and is like a great catch on paper. It was like too much. It was like he was trying to like give to me, like, I want to do this for you, and I want to do that for you, and you're so beautiful, and it was very sincere. I mean, I got the impression this guy was extremely sincere, and truly did feel the connection, because it was there clearly. But he was the one that I was arranged to when I was a king. And so back then he would try to do those things. So it's how I was much easier to say no. It was because he wasn't the one that I wanted anyway, back then. And so I have to now kind of still process what all this means, but to understand now, like, why I felt this crazy thing with these two people, it makes sense now. So now once you have the information, you have the power. And, there's, I think, some forgiveness I need to do, some releasing of guilt, perhaps tied back to that situation. Um, and knowing now, that the love doesn't have to be forbidden anymore, right? You love who you love. And I know in my case, I don't care how much money somebody has or what their status is or whatever, you want to be with who you want to be with. And thankfully, in this day and age, it's possible. And that's why we're here to shed these boundaries, shift these paradigms, shatter these boundaries, I guess is what I wanted to say. Okay, so that one came out. Unrequited Love is, again, one that I got a little bit in, and it was a little bit removed, but that was the situation where I was the peasant and there was the prince. I think the unrequited love theme is much more being played out with my divine counterpart and I, or my perceived divine counterpart and I, my twin who has triggered me immensely. That's the theme that I've got to work through, is that feeling of loving someone who doesn't love you back. Because that's a common theme too in past lives, especially with arranged marriages. I definitely think there was a Native American, and she said I actually have it in my line, like my actual blood, which I didn't know, but she picked up on that right away. I just know that I have a guy named Lewa, and she came through today too. But I think that I was in an arranged marriage as a Native American and was extremely unhappy and with somebody that I didn't love. But so the last thing that came through, you guys, was I had sort of this, a couple of different scenarios with potential soulmates in this life. And I was hoping to kind of figure out, why are they both here now? And what does it mean? And so there was only one person that came through very strongly as the one that, going back all the lifetimes, not the ancient Egypt one, he wasn't present there, but this one was the strongest, and it was the last one I think the last one that came through. This is my twin. He was at battle in Civil War. My sister and I were orphaned, and so I was about 17, I think, 17 or 18, and she was like 22, and he was away at war, and I died in childbirth, which I knew. I knew I'd been told that before, and I knew it, and I sensed it, and the whole scenario. She was the one that was a sister then. She's my best friend now, and she and I've talked about it and why she maybe has some guilt about herself or things that she needs to purge in this life, is feeling like she let me die or something, that she couldn't save me. But I died in childbirth, and she raised my daughter back then. But there was this one person I couldn't place, like, why, how does this person fit? What is their deal? Well, it came through at the very end. Like, I just couldn't, like, she was actually bringing me out of the hypnosis. And I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. It's coming to me now. Like, this is what this is. My husband at the time was away at war, and I turned to his brother, and for comfort and affection, and because I wasn't getting that, obviously, if my husband was at war, and he was actually the father of the child, and I think my repentance was dying in childbirth. And this guy wasn't even around when I was giving birth, so that tells you, like, he didn't stick around, or he was working. I don't know what happened, but it became pretty clear that, the pattern now is that I'm not, if I'm in separation and I'm not in this relationship with this person and they keep rejecting me, they keep going away and they're not in my life, I'm turning to someone else. And that's a pattern that it became very clear needs to be cleared out. Now, whether, what the future holds for any situation. I mean, she even told me, she's like, honey, she's like, you need to come to this wine bar with me tonight because I know so many people that go to this wine bar, and after they have a past life regression session and clear shit out, she's like, they meet the love of their life, and it's happened. So I don't want anybody watching this to say I'm like, oh, I did this just for, no, I did this for myself. But it gave me clarity and answers on why I feel such a strong bond with someone else, um, that I couldn't quite place. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. I knew he and I were soul family, and we went back. So it's just really amazing. But yeah, the same patterns, see, they've repeated themselves. Not only within this life to show you, like, right, the situation where I had with the young guy and then this guy coming in, there were the parallels, the spiral, but it also comes ancient ancestral stuff, the same pattern of forbidden love, the same pattern of, well, that person's not around, so I'm going to turn to someone else. Those types of things, you did that in that past life and you're doing it again. It's time to stop it and clear that out and start a new path and move forward. And you can only do that when you learn these things about yourself, when you face these things. And it also explains too, I think, why my twin may not fully feel safe with me, or like he can trust that this is a real thing and that I'm not going to leave him, or want to choose someone else. I mean, that a lot of that makes sense. I thought a lot of it was his childhood, but I think a lot of it is this situation that happened with us, or our spirit line and the karma. And I think there's a lot of the similar themes that are going on in the collective. So if anything that I said, just you're like, oh, that sounds kind of like a situation I have with so and so and so and so. I mean, obviously the facts aren't going to be identical, but the themes are. Trust me, the underlying themes and how you can look at the lessons they're trying to teach you, they all pair down to the same thing. It's just how they come through and tie into your life now. So I think, where am I now? I said earlier, I need to forgive myself for the forbidden love scenario where I didn't love someone back who loved me, right? That's unrequited love, that I was making someone else feel unrequited love, which I felt like this week I did, which was very hurtful because I know he doesn't understand. I mean, I did tell him, like, we talked, I'm like, yeah, we go back thousands of years. This is crazy. Part of me has been questioning, did I give him a proper explanation? Because I'm sure if he's never experienced this, it's like maybe this will be a catalyst for him to awaken. I don't know. But then again, if I told him, this is past life karma, and he'd probably think I was crazy. But he was very receptive to a lot of these things, so that's what made it harder too. It's like he wanted to learn about healing, he wanted to learn about all this stuff, and it's like, man, if I wasn't on this path, and this pays in my life, I mean, you best bet you can fly me out to wine country. You can fly me, we can fly across the world together, and oh my God, and it's to walk away from that, for me to have the strength to walk away from that and to know that's not what I want, really, deep down. I'd rather be alone. When it came time down to it, it's like, you know what? I'd rather be by myself here, talking to myself in my room, doing my own thing. So anyway, I don't mean to digress, but it's just very important to figure out what it is, because I've done a lot of forgiveness and of myself for things in this life, written things out, burned them with the full moon, and it's much beyond that. So I have some forgiveness work to do. I think I actually might do it. We do have the full moon coming up, and I'll be back that weekend. I think it's the 13th, where I may sit down and write out all this past life stuff, and the unrequited love, and the self-destruction. Not being able to save the person that I loved when I was a king. I was a king and I couldn't save him. No wonder I felt like I had to save him now. But you've got to let go of that guilt. You've got to forgive yourself, forgive the other person if you were on the other end of them not loving you back, and know that you are worth loving, that you've got to, deal with these things and face them. So, I hope this was helpful. I would love to, hear your comments. If you guys want to hear more stuff, on past life stuff, I can certainly, I think it's something I'm going to probably start looking into more. She did hypnosis on me. I kind of am feeling called to maybe learn that, um, to maybe something that I might be able to do. But I think YouTube probably does offer guided meditations on past life clearing, bringing up past life memories. I will try to post, I feel like I did find one. I'm going to see if I can find a good one that I can share with you guys. So, but in the interim, let me know if you have comments, questions. I do plan, hopefully, I have a pretty jam-packed schedule my last 2 days here, tomorrow, unfortunately, before I go back to Phoenix. So I do really want to record a soul connections and separation video for you guys with this energy. Again, I'm going to show you guys. We'll close out with it, with this energy. Sorry, my brain's a little fuzzy just from everything that's happened. We want to get the get into focus. There we go. There we go. Okay. But I think I just, having that energy behind me, I definitely want to do some sort of a reading here for you guys. So I will try. Hopefully tomorrow morning I'm doing sunrise yoga. I'm not a morning person, but out here I wake up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning with no alarm. It's really crazy. So until then, like I said, I hope this was helpful, guys. And if you want to know more, let me know if there's other topics you want to hear. Also, I'm happy to hear your suggestions. Thanks.